I'd like to now invite the policy makers up to join us on the panel, starting with Bernadette Zerba, Mark Tierney, Carlye, Sycz, Tara Gardiner, and Kylie Hughes. Now, you'll all be pleased to know that due to time constraints, you'll all have to speak a lot faster, and there'll be less time for questions. So I'd just like to invite you to do a quick discussion, and then we can have a few questions.
Thanks very much, Lynette. Thanks everyone for having us here today. It's such an exciting event. So my name's Bernadette Zerba. I'm DDG of Department of Regional Development, Manufacturing and Water. And very quickly, I will tell you what we do for the manufacturing sector. We haven't got much time, so I'll just focus on 5 key initiatives. The first is that we support you with government engagement and ecosystem development. So we create opportunities for you to have a direct influence on government policy through your industry being represented on the Manufacturing Ministerial Council. So the Minister was pleased to recently announce Dr. Kimberly Talbot of Feline as the newly appointed member of the Council. And we're very happy to have her. We also sponsor events such as today to help build the ecosystem of battery development and production by bringing industry, government and universities together. And we also sponsor events such as the parliamentary showcase we had the other day, where we had a range of manufacturers come and showcase their capabilities and also get to network with each other. Our second initiative is that we provide advanced manufacturing support through our regional manufacturing hubs. So as the Minister mentioned today, we have 6 manufacturing hubs across the state that offer training and business development programs to support manufacturers to transition to advanced manufacturing. And we also have new sites at Moreton Shire Council and also Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast. We also co-fund the Advanced Robotics for Manufacturing Hub to facilitate the increased use of robotics in the manufacturing sector. Initiative 3 is we provide direct support to manufacturers through a range of grant programs. So we have a $28 million Manufacturing Hub grant program and a $100 million Made in Queensland grant program to support technology adoption through new equipment. So that's a co-funded dollar-for-dollar program. We also have a $7 million energy efficiency grant program to support manufacturers to implement energy efficiency measures that reduce energy costs and operational emissions. Initiative 4, we provide support and pathways to skills and training. So we work with industry to understand their training needs, and then we facilitate access to appropriate training directly through our manufacturing hubs, or by connecting them with such agencies as Manufacturing Skills Queensland, and Beck will be talking to you later today more about their role, or the Department of Training, Employment and Small Business. Lastly, we partner with other agencies across government to drive outcomes for the sector. So we're working very closely with our colleagues in Department of State Development, in Infrastructure, Local Government and Planning, who's here today, who are the lead on developing the state battery industry strategy. And as part of that, we're working on developing an Australian battery supply chain database. To do this, we're working in partnership with the AMBC and the Industry Capability Network. I'd also like to acknowledge the time and effort of Dr. Joshua Swartz of the National Battery Testing Centre, who's provided an enormous amount of guidance in development of the database as well. So the database will be a national, live and open source, and it will list all companies that are in the supply chain from mining through to end-of-life recycling as the battery industry emerges over time. And we're also working with DES to explore opportunities for resource recovery and recycling within the manufacturing sector. So to wrap up, let me say that we believe Queensland manufacturers are already excelling in the production of components that could be adapted towards a diverse battery supply chain, and we hope to work with them to build on this expertise to transform the economy. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Mark Tierney is my name, Acting Deputy Director General with Department of State Development, Infrastructure, Local Government and Planning. Earlier this year in May, we released the Queensland New Industry Development Strategy. This strategy highlights the government's efforts to create low-emission industries that will support our larger economy to decarbonise, and ultimately with the ambition that they will help the globe decarbonise as well. We always have a role to play in the context of how much we can do and trying to work that out. The industries that we described in the new industry development strategy was the renewable energy manufacturing, critical minerals, batteries, hydrogen, bioeconomy, and the circular economy. So 6 key industries in that regard. Our job from the department's perspective goes beyond thinking ahead though, and really what we're trying to do now is act with haste to be able to establish these industries to make a difference by the time we hit the 2030s. With respect to batteries, you all know that we are developing the battery industry development strategy. We've been working on that for quite some time, and many of you have been consulted as we go on that journey. With the government's goodwill, that should be released within the next few months. There is a lot that we can talk about in the context of batteries and the broader industry development piece that we do. I think it's important to recognise that a lot of the time we can be technology neutral. We recognise that we need to play to our competitive strengths, and that means that we need to allow time for technology to mature so that it can be deployed in the right place at the right time. You will see that this influences the battery industry development strategy when it is released later in the year. I might leave it there for the moment in the interest of time. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Carlye Sycz. I'm from the Queensland Department of Resources. So obviously I'm here today to talk about a little bit of the earlier part of the supply chain for us, which is critical minerals. And I won't take up too much time because I think fortunately when you're like the 4th government person that's come up, a lot of it's already been said. But I will say, obviously it goes without saying, Queensland's extremely fortunate in terms of its natural mineral deposits. And part of the work that we're doing in Queensland Government is really capitalising on the abundance that we've got of those critical minerals required to power electric vehicles, construct storage batteries and build the componentry required for renewable energy. But for us, that's really about moving from that traditional dig and ship model that we've used in Queensland to really thinking about how we build down the supply chain. So in June, the Premier released Queensland's Critical Mineral Strategy, which outlines 9 key actions and $245 million worth of investment to grow the critical minerals sector across 4 key objectives. And importantly, the Critical Mineral Strategy aligns with a lot of the other plans that you've heard about, talked about today, including Mark's new industry development strategy and the Queensland Energy and Jobs Plan, which Tara will talk about shortly as well. But as part of our objectives, Queensland Critical Mineral Strategy has allocated $75 million to support projects on a place-based approach through our critical mineral zones. So this will be about supporting projects within 2 currently identified critical mineral zones, as well as any future zones that may be identified in the future. And the first zone will be in Mount Isa, which is about capitalising on secondary processing opportunities such as cobalt from existing mine tailings. And the second zone is in the Julia Creek Richmond area to support emerging vanadium projects. As a lot of you are aware, Queensland has some of the world's largest known deposits of vanadium, and the aim of this zone is to help accelerate the development of the mines as well as processing facilities needed to create a market-ready vanadium product. Vanadium is obviously a key component in the construction of redox flow batteries, and the development of these facilities will be crucial in providing a refined product for use in the downstream supply chain process. We foresee that these zones can play a part in providing the material needed to support projects being developed through the $100 million Critical Minerals Battery Technology Fund that you heard Chris Laserve talk about earlier this morning. And as part of our developments, we're also in the process of establishing a Critical Minerals Queensland office, which will be based in Townsville. The office will consist of a team whose role will be to lead and coordinate government actions relative to the strategy, as well as critical mineral zones, but it will also serve as a key first point of contact for proponents, potential investors and relevant stakeholder bodies, including the community and First Nations people. We're hiring positions for the team currently and expect to have them established in early October. Alongside establishing the Critical Minerals Office, you've also heard about the $75 million to support the construction of the Queensland Resources Common User Infrastructure Facility that Minister Butcher and Chris talked about earlier today. But obviously the overall goal for this facility is to accelerate the development of commercial mining projects and promote investment in those advanced minerals manufacturing opportunities to enable the development of supply chain and supporting industries in Queensland. So obviously the space is moving quickly. You can see there's a lot of government interest and investment in the space, but we really think we're in a great position to capitalise on the value of those local supply chains and building them out. So thank you so much.
Hello, my name's Tara Gardiner. I'm the Executive Director, Energy Supply and Storage at the Department of Energy and Public Works. Well, this week is a pretty exciting one for us because it marks the 1-year anniversary of the release of the Queensland Energy and Jobs Plan, which is a really landmark policy document that sets out that pathway to decarbonise Queensland's electricity system, to repurpose Queensland's publicly owned coal-fired fleet, to build 22 gigawatts of new wind and solar generation, complemented by 2 long-duration pumped hydro assets, 3 gigawatts of new low-emissions gas, and a raft of batteries and other storage technologies. Queensland's 5 publicly owned energy businesses will be at the heart of that transition, but they certainly can't do it alone, and we're looking for many partners to assist and work with us along that way. As we cast our minds to 2035, we look at an energy system that is characterised by variable renewable energy. So that is not energy that is generated when we demand it, like we have now with our coal fleet, but energy that is supplied when the conditions allow it, when it's sunny or when it's windy. But alas, the wind does not always blow and the sun does not always shine, and energy storage and firming assets are therefore the key to our energy system as we look to the future. And so as we've planned a system that's really been traditionally about moving energy between places and spaces, we're now moving energy over time. The modelling for the Energy and Jobs Plan indicated around 6 to 10 gigawatts of storage to meet the objectives of the government there, with the majority of that sitting in what we'd call long duration or inter-day storage requirements, which is really about addressing the wind and solar droughts, or that Dunkelflaute. The Queensland Government recognised that the particular importance of that long duration storage and has prioritised its investments in pumped hydro projects, given a preference for mature technologies. The FES delivers lower cost storage at scale, but it also has an incredibly long development time. We set up Queensland Hydro to deliver those, and earlier this year the government reached a financial decision to proceed with the Barumba project, which is a 2 gigawatt, 24-hour pumped hydro project just near Gympie. But of course, that's not the only part of the storage and firming story for Queensland. We see that there's a range of technologies that will be needed, particularly within that short and medium duration space, and we're incredibly interested in the role that batteries can play in the system. Not just that time shifting, but also fast response services, local network support and intraday storage. And I want to call out community batteries in particular. So there's a lot of terms kicking about when we talk about batteries. What I'm going to talk about is batteries connected to the low voltage network, so stationary batteries connected to the low voltage network. And we've seen one of our businesses, Energy Queensland, really lean in and support the development there, putting batteries in a range of urban, regional and remote areas, both as part of grid support, but also for standalone isolated systems in very remote communities. The batteries provide a storage solution that enables communities with lots of rooftop solar, of which Queensland has many, to maximise the installations. It also means that we can help with minimum system load problems, which is an increasing challenge as the solar PV take-up continues, and as we see EVs come more and more onto the market. So Energy Queensland have invested in they've received federal funding for 12 community batteries. They've got another 17 more on the way, 5 of which are installed and 12 more coming, and they've partnered with Origin for a range of pole-mounted batteries, 36, with the first ones deployed in Ipswich and more to come. That's a little taste. Obviously, we also see investments around grid-connected batteries, so large-scale battery energy systems, as a particular feature of the energy system. We've been doing more work over the course of the last year to really build on our understanding of the Queensland storage and firming needs, and we'll be expecting to release a strategy next year which really articulates in a lot more detail what those requirements are in terms of future capacity, as well as the investment opportunities for the private sector going forward. Thank you.
Yay, lucky last me. I'll be quick, I promise. Kylie Hughes, I'm the Director of Policy and Legislation in the Office of Circular Economy in the Department of Environment and Science. And I guess there's probably 3 key things that I just want to touch on the work that we've been doing around circular economy and improved resource recovery. So in May this year, we made some fairly important amendments to the Waste Reduction and Recycling Act, one of which was to embed the circular economy principle into legislation. So previously we had it as a strategic priority in our waste management and resource recovery strategy, but we've now elevated it into legislation, so it gives us much more ability to consider circular economy outcomes when we're making decisions around, conditioning facilities, looking at where our focus areas for circular economy priorities might be into the future. We also, as part of those amendments, moved the definition of waste from the Environmental Protection Act to the Waste Act, which gives us much more opportunity to consider again those circular economy and resource recovery outcomes alongside of environmental protection outcomes. And we amended the definition of waste so that we now have the ability to prescribe something in regulation to not be a waste, which is a really important move for us to be able to change the story and the language around something that people may consider to be a waste, but actually turn it into a story about a resource and follow that resource all the way through its, from end of life through to its new life. So we're about to start some work on what that process might look like to identify things that are suitable to be prescribed in regulation to not be a waste, but batteries and solar panels and a few other interesting things certainly came up in conversation when we were running a few scenarios. We have been working with regional organisations of councils across the state to develop regional waste management plans. These plans identify the priorities for the region in terms of infrastructure and non-infrastructure investment, and working closely with state development to identify, I guess, where some of those priority infrastructure, processing, remanufacturing needs might be for particular regions, to be able to then, I guess, have a hub and spoke model, to be able to have aggregation in smaller regional areas, to be able to bring it back to a central processing or remanufacturing facility. And finally, we're about to start work on the feasibility of introducing disposal bans in Queensland. We'll shortly be doing some targeted stakeholder consultation. We're not looking only at landfill disposal bans, but also on-site disposal and management. Some of the end-of-life products we're considering for disposal bans are solar panels, tyres, batteries, mattresses and commercial food organics. So there's a fair bit of work in that space. Obviously, one of the important things for us is that we don't want to move too quickly if there's no infrastructure capacity to be able to handle the diversion from landfill. And so part of the discovery is looking at where that capacity is, where the gaps are, and where we might be able to, incentivise some of that recovery. A part of the work is looking at, part of the discovery is we're working with the Smart Energy Council to run a solar panel recovery pilot, and that will help us gather information about the volume of panels that are coming off roofs, the collection costs and some of those collection channels in various parts of the state. While it's not specifically focused on batteries, out of that pilot we want to get information about, in those pilot locations, I guess, where the installed storage capacity is, where there's potentially future installed capacity, and what is the fate of those batteries as they're nearing the end of life, and they may be coming off roofs, or people may be installing more up-to-date systems. So, it's all going into the mix for us. There's a lot of work going on, and it's exciting times. Thank you.
To our panel. Now, I think we have about 3 minutes for questions. So those of you who are excited about having a question to ask, would you put your hand up, and one of our microphone managers can come and speak to you or bring to you?
How cheaply can a battery be purchased in Queensland right now? How much US dollar per kilowatt?
For the purchase of a battery in Queensland?
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm launching a green hydrogen startup that use for the electrolyzer to run 24/7. Therefore, the battery will be needed to charge the electrolyzers at night. And I want to know how cheaply can battery manufacturers in Queensland sell battery? How much is it per kilowatt?
I'm not sure who on the government panel seeks to answer that one.
I'm not sure any of us have that answer here with us today, but it is an excellent question. I think what that goes to is that we've got to mature the technology that we're currently developing to be able to commercialise it at the lowest long-term cost. So that's the art of industry development that we're going through. We're at the early stages of that. If you want specific information on cost, you might need to talk to individual companies.
Yeah, I would suggest that we have members here today who you might be able to speak to. They're all at different levels of commercialisation. It might give you a better broad view of all the different options that are available in Queensland and Australia. So thank you. Anybody else at the back?
Hi, my name is Joris Eerkens. I'm from Squirrel Energy. I've got a question about batteries and whether or not they are regulated assets. So as we all know, all the overhead lines, they are regulated assets and they get a regulated return. If a battery is a regulated asset, then the GOCs can make a standard return, but from a commercial market perspective, you're already behind because you can't compete with somebody who can already make a return on an investment and on top of that make potential returns in the market. So what's your view on batteries being regulated assets for the network service providers?
I think that's a really good question, and it's one that we need to keep looking into further. I think Energy Queensland, so for those that aren't perhaps familiar with all of our businesses, Energy Queensland is our network business, and they're investing in a range of those batteries. I think that is a really material question for them as they go forward. And even Powerlink, which runs the transmission network, as they look to investments that sit within their asset base too.
I think that's a very good question, maybe to take back to Energy Queensland so that they can add it to their conversation across the Queensland government in terms of what the future might hold for batteries as an asset. We probably have about one more question if anybody has any pressing requirements. Well, on that basis, thank you very much to our panellists.